you're probably watching this on your cell phone or your computer, and you're probably also logged into Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram or something else. So here are 10 reasons why social media is killing you. And before you start watching this, please subscribe. It really makes a difference. Number 10, teen suicide. There's a new generation called iGen. Those are people born between 1995 and 2012. They grew up with smartphones and they don't remember a time before the internet. In 2012, we hit a tipping point where more than 50% of Americans owned a smartphone. Since then, rates of teen depression and suicide have skyrocketed. The number of teens who get together with their friends nearly every day dropped by more than 40% between 2000 and 2015. Teens who spend a lot of time on screen activities are more likely to be unhappy, and those who spend 3 hours a day or more on electronic devices are 35% more likely to have a risk factor for suicide. Number 9, even millennials are tuning out. It's true, a recent survey found that users between the ages of 18 and 24 are seeking relief from social media, and 34% of young users reported deleting their social media accounts entirely. And Snapchat recently lost $1.3 billion in market cap when Kylie Jenner said she was deleting the app, so there's a lot on the line. Instead, millennials are doing camping, outdoor activity, and extended backcountry trips, or digital detoxes in an isolated setting. Unplug, check out how it feels. You'll never go back. Number 8, the Dark Triad. Some experts say that the internet is cultivating a dark cluster of personality traits, 3 of them called the Dark Triad. It's psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and narcissism. Here's a concrete example. 18-year-old Marina Lonina used Periscope to broadcast a shocking sexual assault in real time. Her and her 17-year-old friend made a 29-year-old man named Raymond Gates at the mall. The next night, they were all at his house. He pulled out a bottle of vodka. The 3 started drinking. Later that night, Gates pinned down her 17-year-old friend and began raping her. Lonina live-streamed the event on Periscope, ignoring her friend's pleas and laughing giddily. Lonina's now been charged and could face up to 40 years in prison. That's the kind of crazy stuff that social media makes people do. Number 7, car accidents. On September 10th, 2015, Crystal McGee was driving on a highway outside of Atlanta using Snapchat Speed Filter, which allows users to track how fast they're driving while snapping a photo on their app. At around 11:15 p.m., she began speeding in her Benz C230. She hit 80, 90, then 100 miles an hour. She slammed into a Mitsubishi Outlander that was pulling out onto the highway. The driver of the Mitsubishi was severely injured and suffered permanent brain injury. After the accident, McGee was in the ambulance, strapped to a gurney, and she took a selfie that said, "Lucky to be alive." It turns out that 1.6 million accidents involve cell phones, and every year 421,000 people are injured. Yet another reason why social media is killing you. Number 6, text neck. Every year, U.S. cell phone customers send over 2 trillion texts. They also slouch and lean their necks forward. It's creating big problems. A 2011 study showed that 53% of mobile phone users suffer numbness or neck aches, and 83% of subjects reported some hand and neck pain during texting. 90% of people hold your neck flexed when you text, and when you hold your head in such a position, it adds up to 30 pounds of extra weight on your upper vertebrae, which can strain your trap muscles. This is an abnormal state, and it's really effing up your spine. Number 5, poor body image. There's a new craze right now on social media called Fitspiration, and it's all about Lululemon lithe, really tight women who are super athletic, and motivational phrases like, "Do not reward yourself with food, you are not a dog." But what's really happening is something called the alienation effect. The problem is that the images actually set women up for failure because it's so intense. They were like, I can never do that for a sustained period of time. Number 4, the right to be forgotten. We take it for granted, but after George Orwell's 1984 was released, it turns out that we're pretty much living in the surveillance state he thought about. You're being monitored online, you're being monitored offline, your iPhone is basically a tracking device, all of your phone calls, all of your emails, it's completely digitized. So the question is, can you have some of those things erased? With the perfect memory of the internet, one mistake could haunt you for the rest of your life. Take the case of Andrew Feldmar, who was a Canadian psychotherapist who went down to Seattle to pick up a friend at the airport. It turns out he had written in an academic journal 5 years earlier that he had taken LSD in the 60s. He was detained for 4 hours and barred from entry from the US. Point being that if you do something online, it can haunt you for the rest of your life. Number 3, it's actually making us dumber. So researchers at Cornell in Beijing found that people who retweeted information a lot were less able to understand and process that information. Basically, they split the Chinese students into 2 groups and gave them a Twitter-like app. When they merely passed things along instead of really wrestling with them, they actually remembered far less. The same goes true for likes or other kind of quick smiley face feedback that we see on social media. It takes up so much processing power of our brains that we're not actually interacting with the content itself like you would maybe with a book. So remember, the next time you log on to social media, it's actually making you dumber. Number 2, it opens the door to stalkers. Did you know that your GPS check-ins could easily leave you vulnerable to weirdos and predators? Back in December of 2015, a 44-year-old man named Arturo Galvan was arrested for using GPS coordinates he found on geotagged photos on social media and would use them to find female college students, break into their homes, and steal their panties. After the incident, the Fullerton police warned women to double-check their privacy and location settings, and you should too. It even happened to former Today Show celebrity Tamron Hall, who was a victim of stalking twice. It turns out that her Twitter was geotagging locations in her life, and someone could have easily used it to triangulate where she lives. It's scary stuff, and another reason why social media is killing you. Number 1, social media hinders your job prospects. Over 90% of job hunters look for work online. But you know what, geniuses? A full 70 to 80% of jobs are never posted online. So while you're on LinkedIn and Monster.com posting your latest resume, other people, the 5%, are actually going to networking events and setting up informational interviews with people in the flesh. Not to mention, social media is also costing people jobs even at the interview phase. It turns out that companies reject about 10% of people aged 16 to 34 because of something they shared on social media. The point is, if you want to get a job, get off social media and actually meet people who are in the industry you want to work in. From text, neck, and spinal injuries to live streaming rapes, social media is a scourge on our society and is draining all of the creativity, connection, and human interaction that makes us who we are as a species. So if you really want to feel better and change your life, consider dropping social media completely. You'll never regret it. We hope you enjoyed this list and subscribe to Decagon and become part of our family.